Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Josh Guesman, Miss Wendy Thomas is back in the house. The LA Galaxy getting ready to face off against the Seattle Sounders on Sunday at StubHub Center, a nationally televised game and a chance for the Galaxy to get back in the win column. Start of a three-game homestand as well, and we're certainly going to talk about that game as we get closer to the end of the show. We're also going to talk about the Orlando game a little bit. 2-1 loss for the LA Galaxy. I'm sure Wendy and I will have lots of thoughts on that. And then there's lots of LA Galaxy news, including a new acquisition. Jack McInerney joins the LA Galaxy as well. So a packed show full of stuff. We're also going to try to get to your calls as well. You're here for the next 60 minutes. Thanks for joining us here on Corner of the Galaxy. All right, we start where we always start, talking with one of my favorite people. Welcome back to the show after her trip to Germany and a busy week after that, Miss Wendy Thomas. Wendy, thanks for stopping by.
Josh, I missed you so much.
Only a little bit, though, right? I mean...
No, I missed you. I missed talking LA Galaxy with you on the pod.
It is, once you start doing it, you realize that if you don't do something like this is basically my life mantra. If I don't talk about the LA Galaxy on a weekly basis, I go crazy. I mean, you could see me on the news, like on top of a building naked, screaming about, Alessandrini and how wonderful he is, while also lamenting the fact that Joao Pedro can't seem to stop or hail a cab. Let alone stop anybody in the midfield. So that's sort of...
Well, I do think it was telling, though, when I was in Germany, the LA Galaxy's game that week aired at 4 a.m. in German time. And I did actually wake up, and it was around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I poked Christian in the hotel room, and I was whispering, the LA Galaxy won their game, babe. Go back. I said, go back to sleep now.
There you go. And you know what was funny is I remember whenever I was in Paris on my honeymoon, I was watching and listening to the LA Galaxy games as well because I couldn't sleep basically the whole time I was there. So it's always weird to sort of go somewhere else and then, follow the Galaxy. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. I'm used to being here close and local, but I assume you had a good time in Germany.
Had an amazing time, got to see 2 Bundesliga games, very good games, and I thought it was fantastic to see, other teams and other leagues, other stadiums, other fan bases, just to absorb some soccer culture from another country.
Right.
And I must say, the Bundesliga, we saw Dortmund play Hamburg, and then we saw the Dortmund versus Bayern Munich game where Bayern Munich stomped all over Dortmund. I was so salty and bitter. But it was brilliant to see in terms of it really casts a stark comparison to the quality difference between MLS and the Bundesliga when you see how well players in the Bundesliga circulate the ball,
right,
the passing sequences and everything like that. And I was so startled by that last weekend, Christian and I watched almost every single MLS game because I wanted to see if it was just the LA Galaxy or if there are teams in MLS that are passing well. And I have to say that there are teams in MLS that are doing much better jobs in terms of their passing, in terms of stringing together passing sequences than the Galaxy right now, which concerns me.
Well, I mean, it's it's the first on a large list for the LA Galaxy of what should concern you and what shouldn't. I mean, the first thing for this Orlando game, and I have to start. I didn't know this stat before the LA Galaxy actually played this game, but the LA Galaxy have not won on the East Coast since 2013. Seriously.
I saw that. That's an incredible stat.
And it was against Philadelphia in 2013. May 15th, 2013 versus the Philadelphia Union. That was the last time the Galaxy have won. It's been that long. Not only did that put into perspective how long the LA Galaxy haven't won on the road, or haven't won on the East Coast, but it also puts into perspective how long I've been watching the LA Galaxy not win on the East Coast. It's one of those things. It's like, it's hard to remember actually when that happened. And I don't personally remember the game that they won against Philadelphia. It was probably one of those, oh yeah, of course we won, one of those things. And then you didn't realize it was going to be, you're now on a stretch of 4 years where the Galaxy have not won on the East Coast.
Well, it makes you think about, it must be a terrible physical burden then to travel to another coast and have to play a game. And I think also going west to east is different from going east to west. That's another thing that this trip reminded me of, because it's been a while since I've been to Europe. But when you travel from west to east, it's a much heavier lag on your body for some reason than it is when you travel east to west.
Oh, yeah, no, it absolutely is. Pilot-wise, it's always, obviously, it goes from north to south, like north-south, south-north doesn't matter, right? Because you're not changing time zones.
Same time zones.
Right, you're fine with that. East-west, so east going to west is always easier on your body than west going to east, and it's just, for whatever reason, it's just the acclimation. Somebody told me that the key to that is to eat at the time zone that you're in. So whenever you're there and it's now lunchtime there, you should eat lunch right then, because that's going to help your body get set and ready to go. Or if it's breakfast time when you arrive, eat breakfast right away and get your body sort of used to being breakfast, lunch, dinner, and that'll help you with your... Listen, there's nothing that really works all that well.
Listen, get Kurtenhoff on the phone. Tell him, I'm a former pilot. I know these things. Come on, give him some insight. Give him some tutelage.
According to Nathan Smith, though, they drink beet juice. All right. Nathan said that was one of the things. Yeah, we had Nathan on the show whenever you weren't here, and Nate was telling me. I asked him one of the weirdest things, and he said beet juice was one of the weirdest things that he's. And I having been a somewhat reluctant fan of a nice beet salad, Wendy, I'm not sure I'm ready to go for beet juice yet.
We had a beet salad last night. It was delicious. I don't know where. A little beet, a little feta, some arugula, maybe some spinach. It's fabulous.
Cooking with Wendy here on Corner of the Galaxy. We could do this.
Fabulous cook. You've never had my cooking, Josh. Let me tell you, you are missing out. I'm a fantastic cook.
Well, to be fair, Wendy, you've never invited me over either. So, I mean, that's the other thing. All right, so let's talk about this Orlando game. The LA Galaxy lose 2-1. I will say this, and I joked around with some people. Hey, this team didn't lose 4-0 to Orlando. So maybe, despite the fact that they probably should have lost 4-0. It's one of those weird. Oh man, Orlando got stoned by the post 3 times in the first half. I think.
No, I saw the post was working in our favor.
I'll take that any day, all day long. However we want to do it. That type of thing. So that wasn't.
I did see this game. It was an interesting game.
The LA Galaxy play interesting games, Wendy. You and I have talked about this. Every game is crazy, wacky.
Every game so far has been interesting. Interesting in awful, terrifying ways, but interesting also in really illuminating ways. Interesting in that it's very different from the way Bruce Arena has managed the team. Interesting in that Kurtenhoff clearly makes really different decisions than Bruce Arena.
I think so.
So you can definitely tell this is a different team. On the plus side, once again, Roman Alessandrini is showing his value, because he is now responsible for half of the offensive output that this team has generated this season. We have, in terms of the number of strikers on our roster, we have Zardes, McBean, Ariel Lassiter. We have, in terms of creative playmakers, Raul Mendiola, Giovanni Dos Santos. We have Jose Villarreal. We have tons and tons of attackers, but none of them can score a goal. Yeah. Roman Alessandrini is now responsible for 4 goals.
For 4 goals, and he's actually had a hand in 6 of the 8. He has 2 assists on the year as well. So, but I would like to point out, and this is the time that I like to make fun of people who told me and who told this program and who tweeted at me and said that Roman Alessandrini was crap and that they never should have gotten him. The LA Galaxy never should have gotten him from Marseille. Oh, there were tons of people. Are you kidding? The first 2 games when Roman Alessandrini didn't quite do everything that everybody wanted him to do, they were
ready.
Are you
sure they weren't talking about Pedro?
No, I'm dead serious. At this point, everything was apparently so horrible with the LA Galaxy.
In the first game, I tweeted that he's really. In the first game, I said Roman Alessandrini, talented.
You and I were on the same page. It was you could see him working. You could see how it was going. I wasn't worried about it.
Hard worker. I think he's going to hurt himself because he's just working so hard. Of course, maybe it's because no one else is doing anything, but
it seems like that.
He's working so hard.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
That could be one of those things that, starts to sort of bite the LA Galaxy, because it certainly seems like there's some players who are trying really, really hard, and there's some players who look like they're standing still. I made a joke on the last podcast. The LA Galaxy and StubHub Center, as part of the sort of their office renovations, Wendy, have been installing motion detectors on all of their lights, like inside the offices. Yeah, I know. It's a long way of getting to a joke that's very easy for everybody to already connect the dots. But they're putting motion detectors in the office, and I wondered if Giovanni Dos Santos was in those offices, would he set the lights off? Would he be able to actually trap those motion detectors? And Joao Pedro for that reason too. Like, although Joao moves a lot, Wendy. I mean, he really moves. He's just never in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing.
Okay. But let me try and play devil's advocate.
Yeah, go for it.
A lot of people have been very critical of Pedro this season. I will say, yes, it appears that he is not the player that maybe the front office thought that he was. However, I do think that at least a portion of his confusion must be attributable to the fact that I think it is probably difficult to pair in the midfield with Jermaine Jones.
Can I read you an email that we got a little while ago, and I forgot about it, and I was reading through some of the emails we got again. And I think this person is going right where you are, and so I'd like to just throw this out there. So Thomas wrote in and sent us an email, and he says, "Can we jump off the Jermaine Jones bandwagon? Over the past 3 years, he has misplayed balls for both club and country, yet we bronze his statue because his engine never stops. That engine also puts him in bad positions where he routinely tackles from behind the run of play or in a teammate's occupied space. Lastly, I feel we are hanging our hats on his performance against Portugal, which was a superb outing. However, his fitness is declining, and it has become more and more apparent as his technical ability dwindles. His first touch has become more rigid, and his passes are very often misweighted or off target altogether. He is a liability and a waste in the midfield. Thanks for letting me rant, Thomas." All right, Thomas, I apologize for not getting it to you, and if you've changed your mind since you sent this email, I don't think you have with those types of feelings, but if you have, you can send me another email and say, "Josh, that was week 2 or week 3. This is week 6, and it's totally different now." But I mean,
I would like to offer a defense of Joao Pedro in case people are saying that he's doing all these things wrong. It's true that he has made some mistakes in terms of just like passing balls to the opposition, stuff like that, which you shouldn't do in any circumstance. But Jermaine Jones is a very particular type of midfield player, and he brings very specific good things to a team, but also he inevitably brings a few negative things to those team. And so in deciding whether or not you want Jermaine Jones in your team, you really have to take him entirely as a player, both the good and the bad. And the good side, he has this indefatigable spirit where he never says die. He creates a lot. He's always roaming into space, looking for opportunities, trying to make things happen. He has amazing engine. He's one of those guys, when you get into a foxhole, he will continue to work. He will continue to try, which is really valuable. On the other hand,
yes.
In possession, he is not nearly as good as Sebastian Lletget.
Right.
He plays with the ball at his feet very differently from Sebastian Lletget. I think Lletget is much superior technically. I think that you cannot rely on Jermaine Jones to do things which you predict a midfielder should do, because he'll just decide all of a sudden he's going to go somewhere else.
Right.
And if you are trying to pair with someone, I always think about 2014 when we had Juninho and Marcelo Sarvis.
Mm-hmm. Lots of people have been making that comparison, by the way.
I know.
Lots of people. Go ahead.
Two, when they played, it was like a sonata. It was like a violin and piano sonata, where two instruments just play off of one another seamlessly, and it creates this exquisite music. Whereas with Jermaine Jones and Joao Pedro, it's like a cello and a bagpipe. It's like there's two organs that are working at opposite ends of one another, and it's creating distress in the midfield. And I know that some of it is attributable to Joao Pedro, but I also want people to think about the fact that because no one can predict what Jermaine Jones is going to do, and because he is very rigid in terms of what he wants to do, he is going to do it. It must be very, very difficult and challenging to pair with him.
Yeah, and I was also talking to people on Reddit, and really, I don't have my mind made up about this. I certainly think that Giovanni Dos Santos is part of the problem here, and Giovanni Dos Santos throughout his career has been known for disappearing in games. So anybody who defends him saying that that's not something that he's known for, I already have to sort of look at you and say, all right, so there's clearly some bias working here that isn't quite letting you understand sort of where some of the other people are coming from. But whenever you look at Giovanni Dos Santos and his inability, if you look at two players who have not had an impact on the LA Galaxy, what is their commonality, Wendy?
Well,
like Jermaine Jones, right? Could you say that Jermaine Jones is a commonality between Giovanni Dos Santos and Joao Pedro? Now, because he sits in between them, right? Basically, he's sitting in between them. He's supposed to be that link. He's supposed
to connect them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and he's supposed to. And is he not doing that? Now, is that Joao Pedro's fault for not connecting with Jones, which is very difficult to do, as you said? And
hard to do because Jermaine Jones is just going to do what he wants to do. I mean, it's not. If you are a defensive midfielder and you're relying on this partner and you don't know what he's going to do and he's not going to respond to you and he's just going to be driven by what he wants, then I don't know how you form that partnership. I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, and I don't know how it all fits together as well. But I mean, there is certainly something to that. Now, I will say this: for all of the shots you want to take at Jermaine Jones, without him, I don't think our offense flows very well at all. And you've looked at the pass he made to Alessandrini, in which he bypassed Gio to find Alessandrini. Alessandrini then turns and makes a shot with his right foot that ties the game. And realistically, in the 83rd minute, should have seen the game be done.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's the thing is that Jermaine Jones actually, he can be. I mean, that's the thing. He can be really good. He can, right?
Well,
but it's a question of, is it that Giovanni Dos Santos and Joe Pedro are they not communicating well with one another? Have they not sat down and talked about this? Are they not in training sessions? What are they doing? Like, somehow there has to be a way for those players to interact with one another in a way where it is productive and fruitful for the team, because they seem so disjointed, even though individually, if you probably took each individual player,
right,
you could look at them and say, each of these players has a lot of talents to offer this team. But right now, it's like the parts do not add up to the sum of something that's greater.
Yeah, no, they don't. There's actually the sum is actually less than the parts right now.
Yeah, I know. It's peculiar, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit. I mean, certainly you have a mix of some young players. You have Joao Pedro, who's young. You have Nathan Smith, and I want to point him out because obviously he gets torched on the first goal for Will Johnson. But when you and you look at the back line that he was supposed to keep in touch with, it ended up being like Jermaine Jones, Giassi Zardes, and Ashley Cole ended up being the back line that he outruns a little bit. And I wonder if the back line of Cole and Van Dam and Steres was actually on their line, if he's in better step with them. It's one of the things. But he gets torched for the first goal. And listen, he's a young player at 22. These are his first MLS games. You don't think there's going to be an adjustment period? There's going to be a huge adjustment period. I'll tell you right now that I feel...
It's one of those things where people started complimenting him, throwing compliments and accolades at him, and then all of a sudden he makes mistakes, and it's sort of like it regresses to the mean. Maybe he had a couple of outings that were better than average, and then he had an outing that was less than average. Maybe he's just sort of a mid sort of floating player, and so he's, we're trying to figure out exactly who he is, and maybe he's not as great as we initially thought, but maybe he's still good.
Well, I think that his biggest downfall right now is that he's probably better going forward from that defensive position than anybody else I think that LA Galaxy currently have on their roster, which is a whole other discussion. But he's better going forward, and he's getting caught going forward. It's really the story of the LA Galaxy defense right now is getting caught too far forward. And if I'm Kurt Arnolfo, I sit down with Jelle Van Dam, and especially in this game against Orlando and this upcoming game against Seattle, and you talk to all the defenders and you say defense first. It's defense first. I know we generate a ton of offense from the overlap of the outside backs, but we can't send both of them forward at the same time. And Smith and Cole get caught forward. It provides problems because Jelle Van Dam likes to tuck up and sort of protect against Pedro a little bit. And so now he's pulled out of position. And who's the last guy back when that happens? It's Daniel Steres. And if you want to see a repeat of Daniel Steres and Jordan Morris in Seattle, so we get that's what we're looking at. We're going to talk more about that. But anyway, in this game, listen, the Galaxy didn't deserve to be in this game. The fact that they almost stole points was really good. They played fairly horrible for, I would say, 60 minutes of that game. I didn't think that they were good. And they played 30 minutes of, quite honestly, dominating soccer. Now, whether or not that was because Orlando was uninterested in the game at that point, because it certainly seemed like as soon as the Galaxy scored, Orlando was like, "Oh, no, we're back in this. Sorry, we weren't paying attention. We thought you guys were taking a break, and we didn't realize what happened. So we're going to go ahead and score now." And we go back even to that play, Wendy, Jermaine Jones on Kyle Larin. Why is Jermaine Jones on Kyle Larin? Is it because Jermaine Jones thinks that he has the physical abilities that Kyle Larin does, despite the age difference and despite the height difference? And why is Jelle Van Dam, the captain of this team, not switching with Jermaine Jones in that particular case to be on Kyle Larin? Don't you think the most dangerous player on Orlando, whenever Kaká's not there, is Kyle Larin, right? I mean,
I know.
And Rivas was really good too.
I almost wonder if maybe the players in the LA Galaxy and the coaching staff should sit down so that they all have a single idea of what this team is and what roles people occupy on this team, because it seems right now there's a little bit of a conflict, because I think Jermaine Jones probably sees himself as the leader of the team. I think Van Dam probably sees himself as the leader of the team. I think Alessandrini sees himself as the leader of the team. I think Dos Santos sees himself as the leader of the team. And I'd just like them maybe to communicate more with one another. Just, you guys should be working together. So let's work together.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly say the problem is that if Giovanni Dos Santos thinks that he's in charge of this team, then I would question his intellect.
Have you seen his new branding company? Oh my goodness!
The Dos Santos brothers are starting that whole soccer camp, right, in Los Angeles. That's what that whole countdown was. That everybody was like, Jonathan Dos Santos is coming to the Galaxy. I'm sitting there going, no, he's not. He's not yet. And if it does happen, it'll happen in the summertime. But they're not going to certainly not announce it just from Gio. And Jonathan with like this load bar that keeps going 33%, 66%. I thought it was cute. And I think it's actually a pretty cool thing that they're going to have a soccer camp in Los Angeles. But that's neither here nor there. No, I agree. I think that there is some ambiguity about who is in charge of this team. And the person who I'd like to be in charge of this team is Curt Onalfo. And if you saw in this game, Wendy, just before halftime, Jermaine Jones was screaming at Curt Onalfo on the sideline, and something like he's not helping or it's not helping. That's basically what I could do whenever I turned it all up and did it. I wonder where I wonder what that is. I wonder where it's coming from. I almost don't have a problem if Jermaine Jones wants to be the coach on the field, as long as like
a Robbie Keane kind of thing.
Yeah. And as long as everybody's on the same page with what they're trying to do, I have no problems with that. And this is one of those things that is told. You said Robbie Keane, which keyed me into like, oh, Robbie Keane, I remember this. Robbie Keane, is a guy who screamed at everybody, and it was fine when they were winning, and then when they weren't winning, it wasn't fine. It's one of those things. And all of this stuff that's going on, Jones, moving forward and getting into the attack, Joao Pedro, sort of sitting back more as the defensive thing, Giovanni Dos Santos, roaming and trying to find his spots to break forward and be involved in this game. All of these things are fine if the LA Galaxy are winning, but they're not. So now they're problems instead of, them being this, oh, look how we interchange with Jermaine Jones playing higher than Giovanni Dos Santos at sometimes. It just, all of this stuff can be solved by doing one thing, which is winning. And in order to do that, all these things have to be solved. So it's a nice little circular argument.
Yeah, it's a catch-22. I mean, I think that all those concepts are things which could be incorporated into the team in terms of Jermaine Jones being allowed to roam, in terms of, making everyone figuring out, for example, in a set piece, who is covering whom before a game. It feels like they're not on the same page with one another. And if Jermaine Jones is screaming at Curt Onalfo, then that suggests to me that there's discord within the team. And that's maybe one reason why it looks so disjointed on the field. Because again, I can see things happening on the field, Roman Alessandrini being one of them, where you say to yourself, wow, now here is a player who could excel in MLS. He is technical, he is hardworking, he is athletic, he has finishing ability, he has X, Y, and Z. You could really see unleashed in MLS how dangerous he could be. But at the same time, if players are working at odds with one another, then they're not going to be able to reach their full potential. And it's maybe they should just sit down, maybe try and set aside some egos. put aside who they think they are and what they can bring and try to work with one another. I just feel, because I watch it, it seems so disjointed.
It is, and that's how a team that, is still feeling themselves out is. I mean, you don't get the I know exactly what you're doing with any of these guys right now. I mean, relatively speaking, it's still a young team that has only played, 6 games together. So,
yeah, I mean, that's obviously that. Yes, absolutely, that plays a part. I mean, a lot of the successful teams in MLS right now, because I did watch a ton of games this weekend. A lot of it comes from natural chemistry of having developed relationships with one another. I watched the Toronto game. Toronto, I mean, Josie did a back heel to Jovinko it was beautiful.
Right.
It was really beautiful. And you're like, they know how to play with one another.
Yeah,
They've played with each other for years.
And that's the team that's still developing.
That.
Yeah, and that's this team that has been developing over, the last couple of years and is relatively stable. I mean, you look at, what the LA Galaxy lineup was, this time last year, and most of those guys aren't around anymore. So, there is some of that. There's enough players on here, though, that I still expect them to do something.
Yes, I know, because there is talent. Again, I mean, listen, we know how talented Ashley Cole is. We know how talented Van Damme is. We know how talented Alessandrini is. We know that Jermaine Jones can be talented. We know that, listen, Giovanni Dos Santos has over 100 caps for the El Tri, for the Mexican national team. It's one of the, I think it's a fantastic team. He obviously has talent. He clearly, when he wants to play well, he can play well. There's no reason why he can't play well for the LA Galaxy. It's just, there's a reason why it's not happening right now. And actually, this would be a great opportunity for Kurt Arnolfo, for Chris Klein, for Pete Vianis, for them to show that they really have the skills to lead this team and take ownership of it. Get these players to work well together. That would be a great way to show that you deserve to be where you are. It would be a great sign to the fans. I really think that they should take the bull by the horns and try and govern this team in a way so that it can be successful, because I really think that the talent is there.
I think there is the ability with that starting lineup. There's the ability to win games. I don't know about the bench yet. I'm still not convinced about anybody coming off the bench is realistically good enough. Before we even get to that, because we're going to start about another player.
Brian Rowe, I think he's probably good enough.
I think he's going to start, and that's who I want to talk about is Diop and Diop in this game. This is one of those, and I'm back and forth in terms of, how he played. I think he was fine in this game, realistically. I mean, the post saved him a bunch of times, and if those guys are hitting shots that are close enough to the post, I'm not sure goalkeepers are supposed to get their fingers on them if they're hitting posts and doing that type of thing. So for the most part, Diop did a fine job, but obviously in the, I think, 67th minute, he got taken down by Giles Barnes in this game, and he looked like he got kneed real close to the hip. And so think of it like almost like a dead leg is what I'm thinking, like real close to the hip. It sounds like it would be extremely painful, especially if it's like on the outside and where the muscle joins the hip, and you got kneed right there, and all of a sudden, it gets sore on you. So you saw how bad he was limping in the game. The question I have is, should he have come out in this game? And if he should have come out, whose job is that to say, come out? Because I know a lot of people are certainly putting Kurt Arnolfo in the spotlight on this, saying, why didn't you take Diop out? Because in that goal that Orlando scores in the 90+1 minutes there into stoppage time, the first minute of stoppage time where Kyle Larin muscled Jermaine Jones off the ball ends up landing pretty much right on the 6-yard box. And Diop is the guy who comes out for anything.
I know.
Stayed on his line. And,
I know.
And so, is there something there? Is there something to dissect?
I think he should have been taken out.
Now, do you think...
When you saw him, he was rolling on the ground, gasping in agony. I mean, I know there's a lot of embellishment in soccer, but he really looked like he was hurt.
And he does that too, by the way. He is one of those
dramatic.
guys. He is. He's a dramatic Frenchman. He loves it. He lives it. Yes, absolutely.
They love the drama. But he did look injured.
He did.
And so I think he should have been taken out. And yes, I think Kurt Arnolfo is responsible for that.
I agree. I agree with you. I think that Kurt Arnolfo is. Here's my argument. Here's what would have been my argument against that had it played out into full fruition here, is that in realistic terms, Diop should also take a large responsibility for that. If he knows that he's not able to do everything that he normally does in terms of after he's injured, and he knows that he's going to be limited, he needs to tell the coach that. That needs to happen.
Okay, theoretically, true. However, if you are a player who you know you're competing with Brian Rowe for the starting spot, and this is only your third game starting after Brian Rowe had the starting position the entirety of last season, it's a little bit difficult for a player who is in close competition with another goalkeeper to voluntarily capitulate, take yourself out of the game and say, okay, I'm handing over the gloves to you, Brian Rowe.
True, it is difficult, but it would have been the mature thing to do. And if he would have done it, then I think Cardinalfo has even more trust in him, knowing that he goes, you know what, my guy knew he was injured. He knew he couldn't perform. He knew we could get Brian Rowe in there. I trust him even more now. He's my guy. Because realistically, I feel like this whole thing is Cardinalfo feeling Clement Diop out as the number one keeper because he said he wanted competition. Brian Rowe gets hurt. Brian Rowe's been better now for a couple games. Diop should have not played against Montreal because of his performance against Vancouver, and yet he still played, right? So if all of those things happen, to me, Cardinalfo's making a case for Diop being the number one. And so if that would have happened.
The fact that Diop did not take himself out undermines that and only demonstrates that why Brian Rowe should be in.
There you go. Exactly, 100%. And so going forward, I think that Brian Rowe is the starter for the foreseeable future. Also, Diop is still injured. Unlikely that he's going to be sort of ready to go. So as we get closer to the Seattle game and looking at the Seattle game towards the end of the show here, we'll transition and talk more about that. But that was the last thing. I think Cardinalfo should have pulled him, and I think he should have been disappointed in Diop not pulling himself out of that game. So that's sort of it. I mean, that's Orlando. The Galaxy should have never been in this game, Wendy. They were lucky to be within striking distance, and then they did a poor job of managing the game, which has been their MO so far this year, against 11-man teams. So I think as we look forward to Seattle, you hope that Seattle gets an early red card.
Yeah, that's basically is what we can win games this season, provided we're only playing teams with 10 men.
That's right. All right.
As long as that's the situation, I think we got a good shot.
If you have any questions or comments for us here at Corner of the Galaxy, of course, you can email us at cornerofthegalaxy@gmail.com. You can go on our website, go to the Contact Us page, or you can give us a call at 949-734-4217. Wendy and I are here to take your calls for the rest of the evening, so please feel free to do that, 949-734-4217, so we can talk about the LA Galaxy. Let's get into some LA Galaxy news here, Wendy. LA Galaxy have acquired forward Jack McInerney after McInerney was released by the Portland Timbers and then cleared waivers. And if you want to know why that's important and how that works, I can tell you real quick. Basically, whenever a player is released, they're put on waivers. That means that any MLS team can pick that player up. There's a waiver order, basically. I think there's a waiver order, or maybe everybody gets to place in a bid on the waiver, and the person with the highest bid gets it. It's one of those. I can't remember exactly 100%. But anyway, so that's sort of what happened with Jack McInerney. Portland released him. He gets placed on waivers. Nobody claimed him on waivers. Then what happens after that is the LA Galaxy or anybody else can, on a first-come, first-served basis, reach out and sign that player. And if you pick them up on waivers, Wendy, you would have to pick them up on their salary. Okay, and so being that he wasn't picked up on waivers, I do believe the LA Galaxy were able to negotiate a salary and not just have to take what Portland was paying him, which last year I think somebody said was around $260,000, which is a ton of money. Yeah, I know, it's like a ton of money, but I seriously doubt the LA Galaxy paid anything near $260. We will know, though, because very soon, I imagine, the MLS Players Union will be coming out with their list. So should be here in the next month or so, and we'll be able to sort of figure out what everybody's making. This is a guy, Wendy. He's 24 years old. He's spent 7 years in the league, and the LA Galaxy will be his fifth team. He was originally drafted.
I know. What does that mean? Because I've looked at his stats. He actually he's scored a pretty good number of goals.
He has. His best year was in 2013, where he scored 12 goals in 2,209 minutes. Other than that, though, it's been kind of sparse. 3 goals, 1 goal, 8 goals, 1 goal, 7 goals, 4 goals, 2 goals, 5 goals. Granted, his time has been very limited. For Columbus, he only played 171 minutes and scored 2 goals and had an assist. So,
what does that mean, though, that he's been with 5 teams? Does that mean there's a problem in the locker room? Does that mean he doesn't get along with coaches? Does that mean that he's a sort of a me player, doesn't play well in a team environment? I wonder what it means.
I've heard.
Maybe it means nothing.
Yeah,
Maybe it just means he hasn't gotten lucky.
I can tell you what I've heard. There's very small, little, tiny, itsy bitsy rumblings that perhaps he could be one of these guys who's maybe a problem sometimes. But I realistically, looking at his salary history and looking at the teams he's played on, to me, he's always been paid like he's a starter. And he's never really been that starter. You know what I mean? So for me, he's always been sort of like the first person to go. Like you look at him and you go, oh, well, you make a lot of money and we don't think you're a starter anymore, so you're gone. You make a lot of money because, we kind of expected you to start, and you know what? You're not starting. You're probably a bench player, so you're gone. And so that sort of seems, if you follow it, I mean, I think that's as good as an explanation as that he's a problem child of some sort, because I certainly haven't heard that outright from anybody who said, oh, Jack Mack, he's a locker room problem or he's a coach problem or anything like that. I just think he's one of these guys who bounces around a lot. It certainly looks that way from sort of his history. And if you look at it, he had 5 years with the Philadelphia Union, or at least, 5 years, basically 4.5 years with the Philadelphia Union until he went to the Montreal Impact in 2014. He was with Montreal from 2014 to 2015, and then in 2015 he went to Columbus, and then from 2015 to 2016 he went to Portland. So 2016 he played for Portland, in which he played 24 games, got 8 starts and 5 goals. So
I have another thought.
Yeah, go for it.
This acquisition, which is, I know this is a year of experimentation where Kurt Nolfo is getting to see whether any of the players that he coached in Los Dos are actually good enough to be in MLS. And I hope the fact that we have acquired a striker, when we have on this team so many strikers, we have Giassi, we have Gio, we have Lassiter, we have McBean, we have BJIV, we have Jose Villarreal. If at the end of this year, all of these players have at various points been given minutes, I think someone should make a decision with respect to whether all of these players should continue to play for the LA Galaxy.
Yep.
Because at a certain point, we just have a ton of players on the roster who don't make an impact on the team.
Absolutely. No, I think you're right. I think that this is a shot across the bow to everybody. Anybody who has played any minutes or anybody who's thinking about playing any minutes for the LA Galaxy, I realistically look at this as an opportunity pickup, Wendy. I don't think that the LA Galaxy, went into the season saying we're going to pick up another striker before this happens, blah, blah, blah. But they've seen the first 6 games. They've seen that their strikers have produced relatively little. They've seen that there isn't necessarily a great option off the bench, which I agree with. There is not a great option off the bench. And you're telling me that you can get Jack McInerney, 24-year-old, still young, so it fits their young sort of mantra that they're going for. A guy who scored 43 MLS goals. Do you think he can help you for this season? I mean, realistically, that's what it looks like, is that this is a pickup that they had an opportunity to get. They sat there and they weighed the options and they said, for what we have to pay him, for all those things, maybe that makes sense. There's also a possibility, and I don't want you to freak out about this or anybody to freak out about this because I don't know that this is true, but there's a possibility that this was a way to fill the roster with Robbie Rogers possibly being put on the season-ending injury list. There is no statement that that's how it went. But,
I think that's definitely what's going to happen. Are you kidding? I'm not shocked by that.
Well, I mean, I don't know how it works. I don't know if you have to put the player on the season-ending injury list and then you get to sign a player up to that dollar amount. So you can't get a player that's worth more than $225,000 because Robbie Rogers, that's how much he made. So, is Jack Mack fitting in under that $225? And is that how they're doing it? I personally think, Wendy, that the LA Galaxy have enough cap room to sign Jack McInerney right now without having to worry about it because you look at the roster and there aren't that many people on it.
I know. I've been saying this for months. I don't think Robbie Rogers will ever play again.
Yeah, and that's the whole, that's sort of where everything is leading anyway. And I think everybody sort of is leaning that direction now. In fact, Kevin Baxter was on the Monday show saying that the LA Galaxy and the league were supposed to make a decision by Wednesday. We're recording on Thursday night. There's still no decision. I don't think that means anything. Usually it just takes forever for MLS to process anything. So, you think the federal government is bad. I think MLS might be worse in terms of how they actually process paperwork and get things done. It only took us a million years to get Dan Kennedy's retirement announcement, and I know that had to go through the league in order to get approved, and then the LA Galaxy released it. So, so all of this stuff sort of stacks up. But for Jack McInerney, for me, He's a younger kid. He knows how to score goals, which is fine. He's sort of a different player. He's more like Giassi Zardes in the terms of that he is a guy who likes to run downhill a little bit more, although Zardes certainly does a ton of hold-up work. He's more of a poacher, so he's a little bit of a Robbie Keane in that way. I don't know that he's going to, create a whole bunch of chances for the LA Galaxy, but he's the guy who, whenever the ball is bouncing around inside the box, that he's one who knows how to knock it into the net. And you know what? I'll be perfectly fine with allowing that type of player to be a substitute when the LA Galaxy need a goal, going down the stretch.
So, watch him outscore Gio.
Well, I mean, that could...
It's like the front office's worst nightmare is having like a $6 million player who doesn't do anything.
Yep, that's right. No, I mean, and that is the way that, basically they built this team so it wouldn't happen. But I mean, Gio, I feel like Gio's going to start to get going. I don't know why. Maybe, a fairy godmother,
You're just optimistic. I think he could at any moment. We just don't know when, because I know it's not a question of ability. I know it's not. I know he can. It's just... I don't know.
All right, let's move on from Jack Mack. I mean, listen, this is not a groundbreaking signing. I certainly don't want to pretend like it is, Wendy. I don't think you and I will ever claim that this is groundbreaking. It could end up being really good for the Galaxy, and I certainly don't think that this hurts them in any way. I don't think this limits them in the summer. Somebody said, "Oh, this means they're not going to get Zlatan in the summer," which we'll talk about Zlatan in a second. We'll talk about it.
Game today against Anderlecht.
Yeah. Zlatan tweaked his knee pretty bad. It looks pretty horrible. Ugh. A little hyperextension.
When you watch the GIF of it, it's one of those things where you go, oh no. When you see the video, it's horrible. I mean, it looked horrible. I hope it's not as bad as it looked.
I think everybody's sort of waiting to see what it is. Right now, we don't know. It's an apparent knee injury. He did come off the game. He played almost 90 minutes. All these things, happen. So that type of thing. If you tried to call, try again. I'll pay more attention this time. It's back behind me now, so I have to watch a little bit better than I have in the past. So go ahead and give us a call here, 949-734-4217. I'm sorry I missed your call there. All right. So Zlatan. Somebody asked if this means that Zlatan's not coming to the LA Galaxy, and I don't think
Zlatan was never coming to the LA Galaxy.
I think there was always a chance he was coming. I think it would have been a lot better if Anderlecht would have won that game, but unfortunately they didn't. So I think it's going to be interesting. It was funny because everybody was tweeting at the LA Galaxy. They're like, "Are you going to sign Zlatan now?" Whenever Anderlecht tied that game, so it was kind of funny. But I don't think this impacts any way yet. Let's find out what the prognosis is, and then we can decide if this has any effect on Zlatan to the LA Galaxy. Because I'm still the person who actually believes that happens because of people I've talked to, and apparently Zlatan's mindset on the LA Galaxy. So we'll see. Also in the news, by the way,
I will say this: you don't read these books. I read all these books.
Yes.
That in his autobiography, I thought this was very interesting. He pronounced that his two sporting idols were Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo, and Muhammad Ali.
Right.
And I think that he has postured himself throughout his career as a Muhammad Ali type character, and he has an enormous reverence for that type of persona. And I think that he has a kind of affection for the United States and its sort of machismo, pageantry,
right,
that he appeals to some part of his personality.
It could happen. LAFC also says that they have offered, or at least somebody's reporting that LAFC has offered to bring Zlatan to LAFC, and he can even stay with the English Premier League club for the next year and then come visit afterwards. And I think they said that it was somewhere around $5 million a season or something like that. That would be well under what the LA Galaxy supposedly have offered Zlatan. So I'm not sure that. And by the way, there's no sources on either of those numbers, so just relax with all that stuff. All right, there's no great information there. Let's go to the LA Galaxy. They're going to be wearing a different Sunday kit. All right, this is the collaboration with Parley. Is it Parley or Parlay? I don't know. Parley. I didn't give me a pronunciation guide, so I have no idea. But it's LA Galaxy, MLS Soccer have collaborated with Parlay and Adidas to basically bring you these kits that both Seattle and the LA Galaxy will be wearing. You can check out the LA Galaxy's kit on our website, cornerofthegalaxy.com. I wrote an article about these kits. They are made from recycled ocean plastic that was intercepted around the Maldives, I believe. So it's exotic ocean trash as well. They did that, and they were able to recycle it and do things. Hold on one second. I think we have a call here, so I had to run and try to grab it real quick. 805, who's this?
Josh, this is your best friend.
Hey, Scott. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you? I wanted to ask you guys 2 questions on the Jack Mack signing.
Yes.
Number one, do you think that, well, first of all, and I think I know Josh's thoughts, but Wendy, what are your personal thoughts on McBean, Villarreal, and Jameson and what they've offered so far, and whether or not they deserve to all kind of move down a peg in the pecking order? And number two, do you think this kind of says something about the academy system as a whole? Because this is kind of the first generation of players. And other than Zardes, Sordo didn't work out. These 3 guys might not work out, although I think Jameson has a shot on the wing. But it just doesn't seem very promising for their academy and for this generation. And I don't know. What do you guys think?
All right, Wendy, go ahead. You get to answer Scott. Scott, I'm going to hang up. We'll take the answer off the air, buddy. All right? Thanks. There we go, Wendy. Go ahead.
So I do think that, yes, those players should probably at some point move on, because I think that with respect to Jameson and Villarreal in particular, they've sustained so many injuries. Bradford Jameson, with respect to sustaining, I think, 3 concussions in 1 year, and Villarreal, who has never really managed to stay healthy for a long period of time. At a certain point, you have to say, look, maybe these guys are they're not meant to be professional soccer players. It's not meant for everyone. It's a very difficult job. You have to be physically robust, and not everyone makes it. I think that with respect to the academy, there's 2 components. One is, yes, this is the first generation of academy players. I expect that academy players will improve as the academy improves, particularly with respect to the quality of the coaching. I really think coaching in this country needs to get better with respect to youth players. And so, one, yes, it shows that the academy isn't yet producing world beaters, although one could say, with respect to some of our best academy products like Haji Wright and Paul Areola, they have gone on to success at other clubs.
Right.
And the second thing is that I think that it's a reality that most club products do not go on to play with the first team, and that is something that is true the world over, not just with the LA Galaxy. I think if you look at the EPL in particular, they have an appalling track record of transitioning players from the academy to the first team. I think that is true with the LA Galaxy. I hope that the LA Galaxy Academy, in terms of its ability to successfully transition players from the academy to the team, improves. But I will say, look, I mean, some of the players are academy products other than Giassi Zardes. I think that Los Dos, in particular, Nathan Smith and Daniel Stairs, Dave Romney, maybe more defensively, we've had more successes. I don't know. I mean, Stairs, I know, wasn't with the LA Galaxy Academy. I don't think Romney was either. But, I think that most teams have academies and most of the players within those academies never make it to the first team.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly 100% true. It's a numbers game, and when you look at it, the numbers are going to tell you that most of those guys, there's a reason that only 0.01% of something of people are professional athletes that go through their sports and do all these things. It's extremely difficult, Wendy, and you're going to miss way, 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 way more than you're ever going to hit. I think that there's still some chance for some of these guys. I think Jose Villarreal is sort of going to be, this might be his last chance. He didn't have a great year with LA Galaxy 2 last year. He hasn't shown a ton of improvement, and quite honestly, I don't know that he sees the field again here for the LA Galaxy. Bradford Jameson actually came into the game and made some inroads there. Again, you're right, Wendy. I mean, he's one concussion away from not being able to play anymore. I mean, it scares me just thinking about it a lot of times, knowing the kid, and he seems like such a great kid, that he'll stay healthy and be on the field. And with Jack McBean, I also say you look at, Jack McBean and what he's been able to do, and look at what Giassi Zardes has been able to do so far. They've played in the same position now. Zardes has been back for 2 or 3 games. Jack McBean got 2 or 3 games. I mean, realistically, you've seen about the same results from those guys. There hasn't been the offense for the LA Galaxy has not clicked. It's one of the reasons that Roman Alessandrini has had a hand in 6 of the 8 goals that the LA Galaxy has scored, and he scored 4 by himself of the 8. And one of them was from a penalty kick, one of them was from a defender, and then does Boateng have the other 2? I mean, you look at...
Boateng has a goal, Gio has a penalty, Dave
Yes.
Romney has a goal, and I think Jermaine Jones has a goal.
There it is.
That's our offense
all of
this
them.
year,
Yes.
folks.
Yeah, there we go. So
That's the offense.
So it's very, so I think that if you're making any snap judgments about the offense right now, you have to understand that they're not anywhere to be. So I think the academy is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's getting guys up to a certain point, and then they're going to have to sink or swim. Eventually, you throw guys into the deep end, Wendy, and you see if they can swim. And so I think after this year, and I think you were 100%, on point, is you look at all of the people that they have on this roster, and if you're not getting production out of roster spots, they got to go. And development can only go so far. You only can keep throwing money into projects, quote unquote, until it doesn't make sense anymore. I mean, that's where, realistically they're going to have to get with some of these players. All right. Onward. We talked about the parlay. Here's these ocean recycled kits. Everybody really seems to like them. I think they're meh. They're not that exciting for me.
They look like my Jammy Jams.
Then they're perfect. You can bid on them. LA Galaxy Foundation. It's actually available for bid now. So go to the foundation page on lagalaxy.com if you want to try to get a hold of one of those. I think the opening bid was at $100, which technically, if you could get it for the opening bid, Wendy, would be cheaper than any other jersey you could possibly get for the LA Galaxy. So it'd be interesting. Here's my problem with them is that, and I think we're going to see this on the field come Sunday. The Seattle Sounders kits and the LA Galaxy kits, they're going to look like they're grayscale images of each other. And if you were worried about Joel Pedro, and other people have made this joke, but if you're worried about Joel Pedro passing to the other team whenever they're not wearing the same color uniform, just wait until they're similar colors.
I know. We're not going to know. We're just going to be passing. I'm going to be looking at the field going like, wait. Who's on our team? Who's on our team?
Yeah, no, I think it's really weird that they decided that those colors were okay to play against each other. Just FYI, Bayern Munich and Real Madrid also played in these kits, in these, the parlay kits, from recycled plastic back in November of 2016. So this is a thing they're doing, and I mean that's sort of where you're at with it. I don't want to make it into a big deal about anything. Seattle Sounders, New York City FC, Orlando City FC, and the LA Galaxy are all wearing these on Sunday, and I think those are both nationally televised games, so that's why they're doing it. All right. Real quickly, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Everybody who hasn't listened to the Monday show, you can listen to the Monday show and hear my thoughts on this. But the LA Galaxy have named former goalkeeper Kevin Hartman in a completely expected move that I think we heard about 2.5 weeks ago, that Kevin Hartman has been named director of the Girls Academy. So, Wendy, what are your thoughts on Kevin Hartman coming in? U14s, U15s, U16, 17s, and U18, 19s. All teams that are fully funded. First time an MLS team has ever fully funded a Girls Academy. Kevin Hartman's the director.
Bro. He's a full-blown Galaxy bro.
He is.
And he's put in charge of the girls. Oh, my goodness. This is like the 8th player who's a former LA Galaxy player who now is in the front office.
I think it's 7, but you're real close.
Someday I'm going to start a multi-million-dollar corporation, and then I'm going to staff it entirely with former professional athletes and see how well it does. I'm just wondering. No, I mean, I think I don't quite understand why the LA Galaxy have a girls' academy when they have no professed interest in having an NWSL team, other than perhaps to snub Mia Hamm in the nose because she has announced that she does want an NWSL team. I mean, it's a peculiar decision to invest money in a cost-cutting era into a girls' academy when you have no professed interest in having an NWSL team.
Right.
I assume that it's some marketing ploy, that it's because the LA Galaxy have no women anywhere in any leadership positions or in the media room, in anywhere, that they're just like, we'll support the
they do.
girls.
I was gonna say they do.
Support the girls playing.
They do have a bunch of women who work for the organization. I will say that. I mean, I don't know that any of them. I don't get to interact with any in a leadership position. I know there are some. I believe the person who runs the StubHub Center is a woman, actually. So it's not. I don't want to say that it's completely devoid of women. There are lots of really good women who work for the LA Galaxy. But I am 100% on with you in terms of why are they creating this team, because it doesn't seem to make any sense.
Except it's got to be some sort of LAFC thing where because LAFC wants a women's team, they don't want to lose out entirely on the female market, and they think that by having a girls' academy, somehow it is some token gesture that they don't just think women should be washing their dishes or something. That women can be athletes too, Josh. It's true.
That is absolutely 100% true. I think that if you're and I think we talked real quick about this. You don't even get to rebut this, but if there was a case for if you're connecting dots and wanting to make sense of this, which you have told me off the air, that's not necessarily what the LA Galaxy do.
Because you can't start with the assumption that they're going to act rationally when you know for a fact that they traded AJ De La Garza to Houston when they knew Robbie Rogers might never play soccer again.
See,
you
guys?
can't start with the foundation that they're going to make rational decisions when you know they made that decision.
See, we almost made it 56 minutes through the show without an AJ reference. It was so close. So close. All right, we go on. I just don't understand what the end game is. Once I can figure out the end game, we can decide whether or not this is a good idea and how they all think. Kevin Hartman is an LA Galaxy legend. I can understand why they would want him within the organization if he's part of the director of the Girls Academy. I certainly want to talk to him and ask him, why this is and what his job is going to entail. I think it'll be interesting. The LA Galaxy 2 will have a tailgate with Kevin Hartman, the Girls Academy director, on Saturday, April 22nd at 5:30 p.m. This is before the LA Galaxy 2 game at the StubHub Center Track and Field Stadium. There will be free beer and free food provided for that game if you go to that tailgate. So it starts at 5:30 p.m. is whenever that tailgate starts. We're going longer today. Everybody just relax, get a drink of water, go around a little bit. Apparently, all of my shows have to go over 60 minutes today, so everybody relax, all right? The LA Galaxy have also announced a tailgate partnership with Jim Beam and Hornitos, and according to Twitter, this is because the LA Galaxy want to make sure their fans are good, well, and drunk before they see the LA Galaxy lose a game. I thought that was humorous, and I enjoyed that take, so thank you people on Twitter who sent that to me after I tweeted this out. Basically, they have different tailgates, and I've been told by some people who I trust very good. My good friend Eric said that they actually went to some of these tailgates and that they're actually a good time, and they're kind of interesting. And so basically allows for early access and some events and music and that type of thing and food and drinks prior to sort of the stadium usually open. So Jim Beam, Hornitos, they have basically almost every home game for the rest of the season covered. So if you want more information on that, I could tell you to go to lagalaxy.com. And I don't think, Wendy, we don't need to discuss that, right? We're good?
No.
Okay, good. On. NFL has released their schedule. Why do we care about the NFL schedule, Wendy?
Because it's 3 back-to-back days. Tristan told me this. He said that there's 3 weekends where we have a game and they have a game right after us, right?
That's right. The LA Chargers coming to play at StubHub Center. There are 3 times right now that match up. One of them is a preseason game on August 12th. August 12th, the LA Galaxy will play in an MLS regular season game against New York City FC. August 13th, the Chargers will play the Seahawks. September 16th, the LA Galaxy will play against Toronto FC at StubHub Center, and on the 17th, the Chargers will host the Dolphins. On September 30th, LA Galaxy will play versus Real Salt Lake, and on the next day, October 1st, the Chargers will face off against the Eagles. For those people worried about lines on the field, this schedule and the way it lines up gives you the best chance for that not to happen. Although this is just regular season, and I said it with a straight face whenever I wrote it down. But you sit there, if the LA Galaxy go to the playoffs, we don't know what the schedule would be for that. But hey, Wendy, I'm going to ask you this question. Would you trade a playoff berth and a long playoff run if there were football lines on the field?
I would rather have a long playoff run, even if it means there's lines in the field.
Exactly. I think everybody would at this point. So that's sort of how it lines up. So if you're wondering how that schedule lines up, we'll sort of keep an eye on it. This gives them basically the longest period of time possible, Wendy, for them not to have lines on the field for LA Galaxy games.
But that grass is going to be torn up.
They're going to have a lot. Well, that's the other thing is it also gives the longest amount of time between the field being torn up from NFL and it going to an LA Galaxy game. So, I mean, technically speaking, if you had to repair and you have to do things, this is giving the most amount of time to do it. So I applaud them for that. Now let's see them keep that field in good shape. I don't care if the Chargers have a torn up field after the LA Galaxy play a game. I do care if the Chargers tear up that field and it takes a whole week for it to recover and it still looks like crap whenever the Galaxy play. So interesting to see. LA Galaxy 2 lost their last home game 2-1. That is a rebuilding year like you have no idea. You think that the LA Galaxy is a rebuilding year, Wendy. LA Galaxy 2 is basically building from scratch because everybody from LA Galaxy 2 went to LA Galaxy. Mike Munoz is the guy to have down there. All right, I'm telling you right now, as far as head coach, really like him. he just comes recommended by so many people, and so give him some time to work some things out there. LA Galaxy 2 have played against or just lost against Seattle Sounders FC 2-1 at home. They have another home game on April 22nd. I talked about the tailgate. This is the 7:30 p.m. kickoff time on Saturday, April 22nd. Doesn't conflict with an LA Galaxy game, so if you get a chance, go out there. They're playing against their arch rivals, Orange County SC, who is an LAFC affiliate. Mike Munoz has asked everybody to get out there for this game. These are back-to-back rivalry games. They will go down to Orange County on May 6th. So April 22nd, LA Galaxy 2 versus Orange County SC, the LAFC affiliate, and then they'll travel down to Orange County, right near me, actually, on Saturday, May 6th, for Orange County as they host LA Galaxy 2. So there's your LA Galaxy 2 update. I'm eventually going to get to one of those games. It's happening. It's not going to happen soon. Wendy, did you know that the LA Galaxy have a 4-game road trip upcoming?
You're kidding.
No, they will have a 3-game homestand, which starts with Seattle, then Philadelphia, then Chicago, and then they will go East Coast to play the New York Red Bulls, and then away to Minnesota, and then away to San Jose, and then away to DC United. Thank you very much. That sounds like...
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's rough. So you can look at the DC United and the New York Red Bull games are both chances for the LA Galaxy to snap that 4-year losing streak on the East Coast. It's not going to happen. Western Conference, Portland leads. Sporting Kansas City is second. Any surprises? FC Dallas third. Houston fourth. Houston might be a little bit of a surprise. I don't know if everybody was going to give them sort of the up and up about whenever it first started. San Jose in fifth. Real Salt Lake in sixth. Vancouver in seventh, and the LA Galaxy in eighth, above the Seattle Sounders in ninth, who they play, and then Minnesota United and Colorado Rapids. I was at the Colorado Rapids game last weekend, Wendy.
I'm still thinking about this 4-game run. So that means that between May 6th and the middle of June, there is no game at the StubHub Center.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's basically it was almost a month since the last time the LA Galaxy played. Whenever they were gone, and the Montreal game, whenever that happened, it was almost like almost 4 weeks between those games. And so then it's LA Galaxy home for home 3 games, and then
That's
away.
a lot of travel.
Yeah, it's like 5 weeks until the LA Galaxy get back realistically back to the StubHub Center. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Okay.
MLS games to watch. Chicago Fire are playing away to Toronto FC. The LA Galaxy play Chicago after they play Seattle this weekend, and then they'll play they play them after Philadelphia. Philadelphia and Montreal play on Saturday. So Friday night, Chicago versus Toronto. Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, Philadelphia and Montreal. Those are sort of your games to watch. We always point out when the LA Galaxy opponents are playing in the next couple of games. So there we go. All
and
right.
The Chicago Fire are good this year. So absorb that, listeners.
They do seem to be better, although Bastian Schweinsteiger...
Their midfield, by the way, is much better than our midfield.
Well, Juninho's in it, so that's okay.
They got Bastian Schweinsteiger. They have Juninho.
And Dax McCarty.
And Dax McCarty. It's a really good midfield.
It's fun to see, absolutely. And there was just a picture floating around the internet of somebody who wanted to take a picture with the Chicago Fire.
I saw that.
Yeah, so they're taking a picture with the Chicago Fire, and the guy holding the camera is probably the guy you wanted in the picture. Bastian Schweinsteiger's holding the camera there, which is always fun.
That's hilarious.
Somebody said that's an indictment of soccer knowledge in the United States, and for me, that's more an indictment.
It's funny.
It's
funny.
It's fun. It's fine. And realistically, that person knew that the Chicago Fire were a soccer team, which I give them credit for starting off altogether. So that's good. Better than most Colorado people. So they don't even realize they have an MLS team. Here we go. LA Galaxy versus the Seattle Sounders, Sunday, April 23rd at 1 p.m. This is a nationally televised game, which is why you have the wacky, stupid, ridiculous kickoff time on Sunday at 1. StubHub Center, broadcast on ESPN. And ESPN Deportes, I should say. Seattle, last game was a 2-1 loss to Vancouver. 2 Freddie Montero goals, getting back at his old team. Upset the Seattle Sounders there, and realistically, Seattle has had sort of a woeful start to the season as well. They're not looking good. They're 1-2-3 for 6 points. The LA Galaxy 2-4-0 for 6 points. The difference between standings between 8th and 9th is the LA Galaxy have won 2 games, and Seattle has only won 1 game.
I still think they're favorites to win.
I have looked at these and sort of taken it. This is going to be the third road game of
Morris,
a 3-game.
Dempsey, Ladero,
Oh, yeah.
all in the attacking third of their team, and our back line is like makeshift.
Well, remember that whenever Montreal came in and how exhausted Montreal was after a 3-game road trip? I'm hoping that that is the same because it's a 3-game road trip for Seattle as well. The only problem is that Seattle hasn't had to travel outside of its time zone in this 3-game road trip. It's probably the best 3-game road trip you could possibly have. They did San Jose, Vancouver, and then they're going to play the LA Galaxy, all north to south, no time changes there. So we'll see if they're just a little bit tired. I doubt they are. This is interesting. No home team has won this game since October 28th of 2015 when Seattle beat the LA Galaxy 3-2 up at CenturyLink there. So it's been a really weird sort of series.
I don't think
between
that
these
statistic is all that impressive. There's only a few games between them every year, and I'm still having flashbacks of Jordan Morris and what he did to Daniel Stairs last year.
Yeah, 4-2 last time these two teams met. That was the September 25th meeting. The LA Galaxy got absolutely smoked in that game. Daniel Stairs still has nightmares about Jordan Morris.
I was salty. I was so salty after that game.
Robbie Rogers still standing in the same spot he was whenever he watched Jordan Morris do exactly. You know what? Quite honestly, Robbie Rogers could play the exact same position he did in that game whenever Jordan Morris torched Daniel Stairs, not having any feeling in his foot.
Oh, man. He just lit past him. Jordan Morris is fast, man. Because he made Daniel Stairs look like he was moving in slow motion.
Yeah, Stairs saying there was a foul there. There probably was, but at the same time, you can't get beat that bad. This is another warning sign for the LA Galaxy getting caught too far up the field. Jelle Van Damme got caught forward on that. Ashley Cole got caught forward on that goal as well. Robbie Rogers got caught not anticipating as he and Daniel Stairs were the only two guys back there. It's just, this is going to be the story for the LA Galaxy is how they defend against these guys. You got Jordan Morris, who is certainly going to try and pick against Daniel Stairs and Nathan Smith on that side. The good news for the LA Galaxy is that their strongest part of their defense does fit into like Nicholas Ladero and where he likes to attack in terms of he likes to attack up the right-hand side. So you could expect that he's going to run into Ashley Cole and Jelle Van Damme, which is a good thing. But you also have to worry about how that's going to match up on the other side and whether or not, Harry Shipp and Roldan are sort of going to be able to have their way against Stairs, Smith, and Alessandrini on that right-hand side. So really interesting. Ozzy Alonso, one of the players that I dislike sort of the most whenever I watch games, Wendy, but also have a huge amount of respect for the amount of defensive work he is able to do, will be going up against a midfield of Jermaine Jones and Joao Pedro. Realistically, that's what's going to happen.
Someone's getting punched.
Yeah. I mean, the chances of this game ending with 22 players is probably actually a little small. I think.
Listen, we know Seattle's going to start with 11 players, but will they end with 11 players?
It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I already said it. Brian Rowe's going to start this game. I do believe that is going to happen. I don't think that their Diop is going to recover in time. So that's just the way. That's going to fly right now. We don't have an answer on who the number one keeper is, according to Curtin Awful, because Diop is injured. But after the game that Diop had and his untrustworthiness, is that a word, Wendy? Did I just add a whole bunch of stuff together to make it? But anyway, his sort of failing, I think, an Analfo test there, I think that, Brian Rowe has a chance to be the number one again and sort of come in and reestablish his position there. It's going to be just so ridiculously difficult to get a win against the Seattle team. I think a draw is in the wheelhouse. But you can't drop any more points when you can't lose another game at home.
Josh, at what point can we start drawing conclusions about this season?
Everybody wants to know.
In June, can I draw conclusions in June?
I mean, I think you can anytime you're sure that there is no improvement left in this team. In terms of that. Now, granted, the improvement may come too late, so maybe you can draw conclusions before that even if the Galaxy do get it all together, it's going to be too late to rally. But, I mean, you can look across to the LA Galaxy's opponent on Sunday and say that realistically you don't have to do that until, end of July, because we all knew where Seattle was kind of in July.
So what do you think the outcome of this game is, Josh? Give me a prediction.
Most of these games end in draws. I think that it might be I was almost going to say it was going to be a boring game, but the LA Galaxy have failed to play a boring game yet this year. So I don't think there is a boring game in this. I think it might be an exciting 2-2 draw. realistically, that might be something that happens. And by the way, somebody did yell at me for saying realistically too much, and I realized I really love that word, and so I'll probably keep saying it all the time.
Oh, that's okay. I get yelled at for the timbre of my voice.
There's really nothing we can fix about that, Wendy. I've already got the bass jacked up as much as I can. I mean, what else?
I'm a woman. My voice sounds the way it sounds.
Auto-tune, maybe? We could auto-tune you, and you could just sing through this all the way, like the Chainsmokers.
Yeah, that wouldn't be annoying at all.
What do you have this game going? And
I think it's going to be a loss. I'm predicting 2-1 loss.
2-1 loss. Who scores the goal for the Galaxy then?
Alessandrini. Who else?
You know, we were talking about how heavily the LA Galaxy rely on Alessandrini, and you said, that's a scary proposition. And I agree with that, because obviously if he stops producing, there is no production from anywhere else. But if you wanted to be the optimistic side of that, it's not scary. He just needs to keep scoring. So as long as he keeps on this clip, the LA Galaxy will be absolutely fine. No worries whatsoever.
That's a plan that can't fail, Josh.
That's right. He's going to set a new scoring record if he keeps up the clip that he's on. 4 goals in 4 games, I believe, or 4 goals in 6 games. I guess you have to go all the way back to the end. But 4 goals in 6 games, has a hand in 6 of the 8 goals the LA Galaxy have scored. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. I will tell you this: Seattle are winless in their last 5 away regular season games. They have 3 losses and 2 draws. There's another thing that sort of leads towards the LA Galaxy. Other than that, that's about it. I mean, there's no serious injuries. I don't think Diop is going to start.
Other than Leggett.
Well, those are like Leggett and Rogers are permanent injuries that we don't have to talk about every week. We'll talk about it when they start coming back. That's how that will go. LA Galaxy kickoff against Seattle, 1 p.m. on Sunday. We'll see everybody out there. All right. Anything else, Wendy, that we haven't touched on? I know we've gone a little longer tonight. That's okay. Lots of LA Galaxy news to get to, and lots of fun stuff. And we had you back on the show, so I was glad to get you back in the saddle.
Well, it's so good to be back.
Tell people where they can find you, and let's close this show out.
You can find me at cornerofthegalaxy.com and American Soccer Now, and on Twitter at BardsBlonde.
Ooh, that's always good. You always need to find Wendy on Twitter. That's always a good thing. So please head out there and do that. All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, at Galaxy Podcast is where I'll be. Go to Corner of the Galaxy. Read all of our wonderful articles. You can take a look at the new kits they'll be playing on Sunday. You can get a preview of this match in about 1,300 or so words that I wrote today, so please head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. We thank everybody for listening. Our numbers have been great so far this year. Please tell your friends. Go on iTunes, leave us a review. Go on SoundCloud, subscribe, iTunes to Cloud, anywhere you get your podcasts, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to get your listens. We'd love to get your friends' listens. Anything you can do to help us grow certainly helps us out. All right, for Miss Wendy Thomas, I'm Josh Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Everyone, have a good night.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.